The new fallout this morning over the decision to pull 6 Dr. Seuss books from publication because of racist and insensitive imagery.
The thing that has been most glaring about the cancellation of Dr. Seuss is the fact that so many on the left don't see this as an instance of cancel culture. This stems from a stark contrast in the ways both sides look at the phenomenon that is social cancellation. The left, or at least the most vocal part of it on issues like this, tends to look at it as a grassroots movement, a populist movement. In this framing, the reason things are canceled is due to overwhelming desire from the majority of society to do so. People who have believed in a way that is unacceptable, films that depict offensive stereotypes or dangerous ideas, television shows that don't have the right blend of racial or social awareness, or general practices of their fellow humans that don't uphold the idea of social progression. The problem with this overall framing is it's a straight-up denial of the harm caused by cancel culture. In fact, it is this interpretation that gives rise to the idea that cancel culture itself is a myth. Detractors of cancel culture see it as a movement of a loud minority of woke leftists who wish to push society toward an ideal state where ideas they find harmful are not tolerated in any form in our culture. It is reductionist to say they just want things they don't like to be banned. It is much more insidious and systematic than that. The reality is this culture battle has 3 major factions. There is the woke leftist mob, who wholeheartedly nod along in dignified glee as cultural history is overturned and laid to waste. These are the people you see on Twitter and Facebook cheering on the next round of deletion, the people making videos decrying every ism they can utter, and the people parroting buzzwords of their Marxist overlords. Some in this category are louder than others, and some have more political and cultural clout. But they further a similar goal and are often in lockstep with each other, even adding bots to their digital army. Then you have the anti-cancel crowd, who generally regard it as bad practice to filter out cultural mainstays based on emotional appeals and mob-like tactics. This group has been massively dispersed by big tech censorship, and the general freedom-loving attitude means they have less structural integrity than the first. So they aren't as effective at mobbing the digital landscape and altering public opinion. If every counter-argument to the woke agenda is subject to being censored on the most popular social media channels, the public perception battle is being fought on unequal terrain, where one side is clearly preferred by the powers that be. And then there's everybody else. The people who really don't care to get caught up in the minutia and just want to live their lives. The key to understanding this battle landscape is realizing the crowd that doesn't care too much is the biggest one, and they will play the key role in how the battle plays out. This is not meant to relegate this group to the status of NPCs or something. There are very intelligent and competent people in this group, but their distance from the battle being fought means they are less aware of the subtleties in the subculture. They are less aware of the misinformation and the framing of each instance of cancellation. Each instance is unique and needs to be addressed point by point, which isn't easily discerned by skimming the most accessible material. But more than anything, they don't have a strong opinion about cancellation one way or the other, which means they are less solidified in their position and could potentially find themselves on either side of the issue depending on the day and which information they give the most credence to. It should be said there are perfectly reasonable things we should be able to agree on. Harvey Weinstein is better off in prison, for instance. Jeffrey Epstein is evil, and we shouldn't have accepted people associating with his Lolita Express if they wanted our respect. And certain issues will pop up on the cancel culture front, which are also reasonable, and those things losing favor with the masses is not necessarily a bad thing. But what we have seen grow in this country is the evil that springs from a culture that insists on strict adherence to the cancel code. It isn't always whether a thing is good or bad, but the frothing at the mouth behavior that feeds into it. Cancel culture has become a business, and that is why it is neither going away or losing steam anytime soon. Media companies are happy to oblige their woke readers with tales of outrage for clicks and control. Politicians are probably stunned by how easy it is to gain attention by simply repeating the proper buzzwords. And once they realize the significance of these words, they continue their exploits to raise their political stock. And the whole system works to keep their base outraged, keep them canceling things. To make enough sausage for everyone to eat, you need to keep feeding more meat to the grinder. And there are a lot of people who want to eat off this system. And so it goes. This is the point of it all, to keep the system going. So everyone can eat and eat well. They have been very satisfied over the last few years, but with satisfaction comes more hunger. They can't have less of it now. They need more and more. This is the insidious nature of cancel culture and why many of its proponents deny it exists. To them, they are reacting to the next thing to cancel, ad infinitum. There's always a new outrage to push ahead with, and they are the good soldiers saving humanity. They see each canceled item as bringing utility to the future, working to save anyone who might be harmed by the material or feel bigotry knock down their self-worth. The culture aspect can only be seen from above it all, when looking at the battle holistically. While the efforts to cancel a single thing may be successful or not based on the fallout, the most important thing to cancel culture isn't the success or failure. It's that the fight happens at all. The aim of the onslaught of cancel culture is not to line up single bits of culture to cancel. That would be too easy, too democratic, and far too messy for the people who have something to gain from it all. No, what the cancel culture really wants to shift is the discussion of what is acceptable. It is an attempt to undermine the will of the people and to engineer society from the top down. This is why the people who don't care as much are so important. They are the greater part of society that can alter the way this thing goes. And their path of least resistance attitude towards it all means they can be the pieces engineered to do the good deeds of the woke mob. As the opinions of society shift to accommodate the ideas of this woke mob, their work is already done for them. No longer will they have to copy and paste their bizarre ramblings to social media to foment resentment. No longer will the media need to work in lockstep to build the outrage among their audience. In this, their utopian future, society will just know what to cancel and they won't even have to think about how to steer it. Then things won't need to be canceled at all because they won't be allowed in the first place. Cancel culture is a real thing. And it is dangerous because it drives us toward that socially engineered future where the things we say and think will be judged by a society that has been duped. Free speech will only be free if it's acceptable. Cancel culture preys on the low information populace. When it seems like everyone is in agreement, those not in the know will tend to just go along with it. It's human nature. And if the alternative is being publicly shamed, well, it's an easy choice for most people. What's the harm anyway? If it seems racist enough, and that is how the movement grows, gaining momentum until the window for what is allowed shifts ever so slightly toward the middle, finding new things to load onto the chopping block. They want people to believe cancel culture is a myth purely because that makes it a more effective tool to wield. Human nature leads us to follow the path of least resistance, to not argue with the majority, to just agree because it saves time and effort, but there are wheels turning in the background, making those decisions the currency of the future. They want people to believe cancel culture is a myth because it eliminates the value of fighting against it. Why would you fight against a mythical figure? And that is precisely why the fight is so necessary. So don't lay down. Don't be complacent. Don't let them control your mind. Resist at every turn. Which leads us to the case of Dr. Seuss. Today, on Dr. Seuss's birthday, Dr. Seuss Enterprises celebrates reading and also our mission of supporting all children and families with messages of hope, inspiration, inclusion, and friendship. We are committed to action. To that end, Dr. Seuss Enterprises, working with a panel of experts, including educators, reviewed our catalog of titles and made the decision last year to cease publication and licensing of the following titles. And to think that I saw it on Mulberry Street. If I Ran the Zoo, McElligott's Pool, On Beyond Zebra, Scrambled Eggs Super, and The Cat's Quizzer. These books portray people in ways that are hurtful and wrong. Ceasing sales of these books is only part of our commitment and our broader plan to ensure Dr. Seuss Enterprises' catalog represents and supports all communities and families. Honestly, the whole statement sounds like a public relations group helping them respond to some outrage or something. But there was no outrage to respond to. This is an important connection as we dig deeper into how cancel culture affects society. The most important part of the statement is here. We are committed to action. To that end, Dr. Seuss Enterprises, working with a panel of experts, including educators, reviewed our catalog of titles and made the decision last year. The big talking point that has been used by the woke mob to deflect the pairing of Dr. Seuss with cancel culture has been the narrative that this is just an example of a business making an ethical choice to stop printing the intellectual property that they own. You've seen it everywhere, almost like a memo was passed around. Free choice, they squawk. See, businesses can do whatever they want now, you see. Corporate freedom is important if they're making the right choices. If they go along with the right narrative, they won't be canceled. How convenient. But the question is, who is this panel of experts and educators, and why were they tasked with reviewing the catalog of titles at all? And all this has been developing since the last year? Well, that's where things get interesting. In February 2019, a study was published in Research on Diversity in Youth Literature. It is titled, The Cat is Out of the Bag, Orientalism, Anti-Blackness, and White Supremacy in Dr. Seuss's Children's Book. Written by Katie Ishizuka of the Conscious Kid Library and Ramon Stevens of the University of California, San Diego. In it, you'll find harsh words for nearly all of Dr. Seuss's work, even the material generally viewed as positive. If you've listened to the woke mob and the mainstream media on this subject, they've been clear about one thing, that they aren't canceling all of Dr. Seuss. There are just certain books that are problematic. It's a good talking point, at least, designed to make everyone countering their narrative seem ridiculous and hateful. But it's a lie for those who are really in charge. These experts and educators do really want to cancel Dr. Seuss for good, every bit of him. On page 37 of their study under Current Activism, as critical race scholar activists, we engage stakeholders, including youth, families, and teachers from racially marginalized communities, to identify and document existing forms of resistance to Seuss's racist works. In 2017, we submitted the stakeholder feedback and our study findings to the National Education Association's Read Across America Advisory Committee. RAA is the nation's largest celebration of reading, with over 45 million annual participants. The NEA created the event in 1996 to take place on Dr. Seuss's birthday, March 2nd. For 20 years, the celebration was centered around Dr. Seuss's children's books and the author himself. We advocated that they reconsider their 20-year focus on Seuss and use their platform to promote anti-racist, diverse books by authors of color. The NEA committed to start transitioning away from Dr. Seuss, change RAA's theme to celebrating a nation of diverse readers, and use the event as an opportunity to promote social justice. For the first time in 20 years, they removed all Dr. Seuss books from their annual Read Across America resource calendar and featured all diverse books and authors at RAA events in 2018. While the NEA has taken steps to rebrand RAA, it is teachers, school administrators, and parents who will be creating and enacting change in their classrooms. We hope this research will encourage continued dialogue on what it means to continue to teach and celebrate these works. So, this is not the story of a business making the free choice to discontinue publishing some books. This is academic blackmail, literally, a stick up for all to witness, being spun into a tale of just another business freely choosing to follow the anti-racist agenda. This is a group of self-proclaimed critical race scholar activists. Those words sound so sinister hyphenated together. Scholar activists. One might call it an oxymoron, but they are the holy scholars. They must know better than we do. They want nothing but control. They want to control what you can read. They want to control what your children can read. Because ultimately, what they want to control is what you think. This is the takeover of cultural icons by academia, and it is being hidden from the public just under the surface. It isn't hard to find this information. It's all public and freely available, but you won't hear about it on the evening news. You won't hear about it on CNN or MSNBC. They don't want you to know the truth. When people think of Facebook and Twitter as their news source, they are at the mercy of what those platforms accept as factual. The narrative has already been written for you. Only there is much more to the real narrative than a 30-second soundbite. There's always so much more. This is Exhibit Media. Links to the material covered are in the description of the video. I highly suggest you take a look at The Cat is Out of the Bag study, as it is truly chilling stuff to read, and I couldn't cover it all in this video. I'm not going to shout at you to pound that like button because you aren't an animal for me to train, and you understand how the internet works. If you found value in my work, consider supporting Exhibit Media in whatever way you want. You'll find links to different ways you can follow and connect below. This has been Exhibit Media, signing out.